Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today it's actually been a while since I've done a news update video because I've been using a lot of clips from some recent interviews and podcasts, which were really great discussions that I thought I would want to share with the channel. So thank you all very much for being very supportive of those videos, but there's been a couple of news items that I did want to touch upon, and before getting into, I guess, the main story of the day dealing with Hollywood and movies potentially being pushed back even more so than they already are, we of course have the very sad news that just the other day, Ennio Morricone, who is a composer best known for composing Western films during his heyday, but also more recently, he was the one that was chosen, like was handpicked by Quentin Tarantino to do the score for The Hateful Eight, which is probably one of my favorite Tarantino films of all time, the more and more I watch it. And one of the best parts of that movie is, without a shadow of a doubt, the score done by Morricone. And so Morricone, obviously, we pray for perpetual light to shine upon you, and hopefully, we pray for the repose of your soul, of course. But one thing that some people maybe don't realize about Ennio Morricone is that he was actually a person of faith, that he was a Christian at the very least. I don't really have too many details about his personal life overall, but I mean, this is the guy that did, the scores for A Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Again, very much known for the amazing work on those various Westerns. But something that people don't realize is he also received an award actually from Pope Francis. He's actually written scores for faith-based films. Back in '86, he did the score for a movie called The Mission, which was absolutely fantastic. Apparently, he also composed a mass marking the 200th anniversary of the restoration of the Society of Jesus in 2015, which of course is the order that is what Pope Francis is a part of. And so it's just really cool to kind of find this stuff out after the fact, that he was a person, not just an amazing composer, but also someone of faith. And something that I really like about what he had to say about this when asked about his faith, he said, "I do not think about my faith when I write a piece of music. I think of the music that I have to write. Music is an abstract art, but of course, when I have to write a religious piece, certainly my faith contributes to that." So, he acknowledges that he has faith. He acknowledges also the fact that, even though his faith might not have a direct influence on the music that he writes, because his focus is on, okay, what is the best way to write music for this specific film? It's just really cool to see that. So I just wanted to, mention that, because obviously just giving a little blurb of, rest in peace at the beginning, obviously a lot of people have been doing that. But I just wanted to dive into that a little bit because I think that's kind of really cool. So if you want to find out more about it, Catholic News Agency has an entire article here about him. And again, died at 91 years old. So lived a very long, full life. And I think one of the last major pictures of his life being The Hateful Eight, being one of the best scores in recent memory, at least that I've heard. Again, one that still sticks with me. Just thinking back to the film, I have to, of course, connect it to the score. Is just really great to see. But the other big news of the day, of course, is the fact that we really don't know when movie theaters are going to be reopening. Again, I've talked about on this channel before about how AMC has said they are moving back their reopening plan to the end of July. We've talked about how other theater chains also have decided to start to delay their reopenings as well, depending on what state the various companies are based in, right, is going to determine what theaters reopen and how many of them reopen. And because of that, you are also now seeing studios that originally had plans to release films, again, starting mid-July, with the first one supposed to have been Tenet, which would have supposed to have been opening in about a week from now, being pushed back all the way to about mid-August. We could actually see even more pushes come into the very near future, because apparently there's a lot of studios that are meeting and talking, especially over the 4th of July weekend, to work out further plans, especially now that there are spikes of various cases going on in various states across the country, especially major states like New York and California, where, of course, most of the money comes from, or at least a huge portion, rather, of the money comes from for the movie industry in general. They are having to now rethink their national plan and their entire reopening plan. As we all know, if the movies, and the new movies at that, the new releases, are going to get delayed in their process, then it also means that by default, we're going to see delays in the movie theaters, right? You can't have new movies without the exhibitors of those films, obviously, unless you're going to VOD, but We all know that many studios would rather have much bigger films go to the theater because there's so much more money to be had there, at least right now, at this time in history. Though, of course, as I've mentioned previously several times on this channel, I honestly think that it's this kind of stuff that's going to push the studios to really start to look more so at their streaming services about how to make the most money off of them, and it's going to eventually result in them charging not just the subscription fee, but also premium fees for new releases and newer titles that cost a little bit more. But let's go ahead and dive into this article that actually is about a week old now at this point, but it is still something that I think is very interesting nonetheless. So the recent surge nationwide of corona cases and California Governor Gavin Newsom's recent promise to lay down tougher restrictions in the state tomorrow has many in exhibition and distribution really concerned that there's no hard date in immediate sight as to when the big circuits will reopen once again. So of course, without going into too much detail about the idiocy of the California governor and all the nonsense that's literally having and pushing people out of the state. Again, we all know one person and one family that lives there, of course, Gary Nerdratic, who is already in the process of moving his entire family out of the state because not only is he fed up with just California politics in general, but specifically because of just how hard this lockdown has hit the industries that have been most connected to him and his family, is truly amazing to see that the impact of real life people, right? People that we actually know and actually are aware of, and how that's going to impact not just them, but imagine what that impact is having on others who might actually be in the position to be capable of leaving to go to different states. Again, of course, couple that with the movie industry overall, and we're looking at an industry that it seems as every day goes by, I always like to leave that kind of stuff in here because, I'm not perfect, and I think it's important to relay that point on continuously, is that the movie industry is basically dying every single day as every day goes by. The report saying, I hear that after July 4th, there will be another assessment by studios, so it's probably happening right about now, in the big circuits as to whether the current lineup of movies, which includes Unhinged with Russell Crowe, Broken Hearts Gallery, Warner Brothers' Tenet, Disney's Mulan, whether they move again as a block in another 2-week delay for each film as more COVID-19 data unveils itself, as it would not come as a shocker if the current August release schedule slides into September. And so basically what we're seeing from all of this is that because of the spike, because of the recent spike, and of course the media is loving to blame that on people going back to their normal lives and not on the protests and riots that have been going on. Lord knows we can't talk about that stuff, right? We can't blame possibly that stuff. But regardless of any of that information, what is prevalent is the fact that because there is indeed an increase, and because we know that when there's an increase in the numbers of cases and in an increase in the number of tests, etc., and all these things are tied together, it gives the governors, it gives the local principalities that much more authority, or at least seemingly that much more authority, or at least that much more brass, one could say, to implement harder restrictions. And any businesses that want to try and open up during that time period that are now either restricted to do so or given such tough restrictions that it would make little sense for them to open up, it leads to a situation like we have right now. And so basically the video of today is really meant to talk about a couple things. One, of course, is the passing of Ennio Morricone, but the other is to say, in all likelihood, what we're going to see is Tenet, Mulan, all of the major films coming out in the next month, or what was supposed to come out in the next month, not just have been pushed back a month to August, but potentially be pushed back to September. And if the cases continue to go in this ebb and flow mentality, and if governors and local authorities continue to act in this way, and just the uncertainty of everything continues to go on as it is right now, do not be surprised if this thing gets pushed back all the way up to even, I would argue, November. I would say that it would make sense that we would not get any major releases until Thanksgiving weekend at this point, with everything being pushed back and with all the cases and with the way that at the very least the people are reacting. It doesn't matter what your thoughts, your personal opinions are about everything going on with COVID, but what the reaction of the people in charge, that reaction, right, those rules and regulations that are being implemented by them consistently is what obviously the businesses and the theaters especially are looking at. And with that, of course, being very clear that the higher the cases, the more restrictions, the harder it is to open, the harder it is to operate, the harder it is to make any sense of profit whatsoever. It means the more likely is the case that things will continue to be pushed back, theaters continuing to stay shuttered down, at least for the national chains, and if they do start to reopen at a much smaller capacity, and yet it's going to be very hard for them to be profitable when there's no new movies set to come out at this point, in all likelihood not until September, eventually maybe even October, and then we could be looking at November. And then, as I've said before, it would not surprise me if when all is said and done, we don't start getting any big major releases until 2021, and that 2020 is essentially going to be viewed as a slosh, as a let's just wipe our hands clean type event. But anyway, what are your thoughts about this? Do you think that with studios being nervous about August as being a viable month for new releases, that we're going to see Tenet and others were, delayed once again? I would say that the evidence at this point seems to be there, as I said, especially since these major states like California, run by Gavin Newsom, and New York State especially, being such a prevalent place for movie industry in itself, is likely going to have an impact on. Do you think that we're going to see these delayed till September, and do you think it's going to be possibly pushed back even more so? So let me know your thoughts about this. When do you think theaters are going to be allowed to reopen? I know that some people are at the point where they just don't care, where they just want to boycott Hollywood, where they just want to push back against anything going on, anything that the authority figures tell us. I understand that mentality. Trust me, I do. But what are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash the like button, hit that subscribe. It helps out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now a huge shout out to all of my Patreon members: Albertus Magnus, animation commentator Brian P., David Bobrizik, Dion, DivX, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Frank the Tank and the Shawhan Wiener Dog Clan, Harold Francis, the Honker Chonker Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Kenneth Camille, Lady T, Laura Story, who is the modern Major General, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mike Jackson, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, Orange Hat Reviews, Outpost Dyer, Out of Step with Reality, Riff Magos, Rosetta Ellen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, The DJD Show, and Tina B. Thank you all for being my Patreon members, and a huge shout out to my Subscribe Star members: Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Robert Revo, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, G2 Cool 99, Darkstar 57, Alex McCarthy, or J. Alex McCarthy Jr., US 888209 Fast, Dean Heiss, Harold Francis, J. Rod the Beer Guru, Nevadan G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you all so very much for being my Patreon and Subscribe Star members. Seriously, you are the wind beneath my wings. You help keep the lights on. You help support things like the giveaways for my $5 and up backers, and also allow me to do a lot of the extra stuff for the channel, including the exclusive OMB podcast that I do every couple of weeks with John, the Flick Pick of the Flick Pick channel. And yeah, thank you so much for your support. Don't want to really drag it out too long this month. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. If you want to have a name shout out, if you want to have access to giveaways, podcasts, any of that kind of stuff, check the links in the description for Patreon and Subscribe Star. You guys rock. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.